Hey everyone, welcome back to White Sparrow Living, Luke 12:6. This is Wendy. Today we're going to be doing 4 modern farmhouse / boho style DIYs using mostly Dollar Tree items as well as some things I might have in my craft room. Basically, if I can find it, I'm going to use it. If you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, I hope you'll consider hitting the big red button below as well as the bell right next to it so that you can be notified every time I upload a brand new video. And if you like these projects, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, comment, and let me know what you think. So without further ado, let's get started. For our first project, we'll be using one of these 8-inch wreath forms, and they come in a pack of 2, but we're just using one. A short and fat little planter, the tin planter. They also have the tall skinny ones, but this one works perfectly. A roll of the white string. Again, this is all from Dollar Tree. This is not from Dollar Tree, this is from Amazon, and these are the 1-inch wooden beads, and I'll have them linked in the description box below. And then this is just a little bangle I found. It was actually my daughter's play jewelry, and so I'm going to be using that for the top ring, but anything that you can find will work. Some acetone and paper towels, and then some Waverly wax in antique, and then some white Rust-Oleum spray paint or whatever spray paint you have. So the first thing we're going to do is pull off the jute twine from our planter, and it's just glued on there and not too well, so it just pulls right off, and it's one big long strand. So I saved this and just rolled it up and put that in my supplies, and I'll use that at another time. So now I'm going to use my acetone to get all the ickies off of the top part of the planter, and so I just used my paper towel and rubbed really hard. And I also tried some Goo Gone, and that didn't quite work as well for this adhesive, but it ended up coming off pretty easily with the acetone. So then after I got it all cleaned off and nice and smooth, I needed to get the sticker off from the bottom, and so because it wouldn't come off, some things will come off easily but some don't, so I had to use my heat gun and my Cricut spatula to get that all the way off, and then just use some more acetone to clean that off all the way. So then I took everything outside to my paint station, and I forgot to bring my bracelet with me, but I'll paint that later. And I'm going to paint starting on the planter upside down, and I'm going to give it about 3 coats, and in between I'll let it completely dry, and then I'm also going to paint the inside of my planter. So while all my paint is drying, I'm going to go in and get my strings ready, and I did 12 sets of 30-inch long pieces, and each of those sets are going to have 5 strands each. So I'm going to have 5 strands of the string that are going to be 30 inches long, and I'm going to do that 12 times. And then I'm going to measure 2 that are going to be 50 inches long, and those will have 5 strands each as well. And then one I'm going to do again with the 5 strands, but that one's going to be 65 inches long. So I'll have all these measurements in the description box below in case you want to do this project. So once I get all my strings set up and ready to go, I'm going to take my Waverly wax in antique and paint the bottom of my planter, and I'm just going to do about 1/3 up. And once I get the paint on, well, it's actually wax, but once I get it on there, I'm going to use a clean brush and kind of pull back over it so that it lightens up. And then I'm going to take a paper towel and get it even lighter, and then if I get it too light, I'll add some more and just take it off if it's too dark, and just go until you get it to the shade that you want. Now I'm going to start wrapping my wreath form, and I take the strings that are 65 inches long, and I'm going to tie a knot on the back of the form and then start wrapping it using all 5 strands and making sure they're all flat at the very beginning, and then just kind of go at an angle until I go back all the way around and meet up with the other piece where I started, and then I'll tie that off in a knot in the back as well. Now I'm going to find my 3 crossbars, and I'm going to take my 30-inch strings and put those in between the first and second ring and pull it through, leaving about 6 inches on the outside. And then the long part is going to go towards the bottom, and the short one, we're going to tie this in a knot and then feed some beads onto it. And anytime I'm having to do something multiple times, if there's measurements involved, I'll make little marks with my pencil on my work surface, which is paper, so that I don't have to use my ruler anymore. I can just line it up with the lines on the table, and then I don't have to measure. And then to get my beads on, I'm going to take a needle with a large eye and feed my strings into it and then put it into the bead. And I do 2 at a time on the first 2, and then the one single one will be last, and that'll be the tightest one anyway, so it works out perfectly. And then I'm going to tie a knot right under the bead to keep it on the strings. And this was really not a good project for me to be doing at this time, because as you know, I had to finally take off my acrylic nails. And so because they've been on for so long, my nails were really thin and very sensitive. So it was a little uncomfortable, but that's just another benefit to this lockdown. My nails get to rest so that they can get back to normal. So once I got all of the 3 crossbar sections done, then I'm going to go right in between 2 of those and get the center area of the next set, and then go in between each one of those using the same method, if that makes sense. So once I get all of my beads on, I'm going to take the bottom strands and match them up in pairs. So since there's 12 total, I'll have 6 pairs. And I'm going to go down 7 inches and just tie a simple knot. And then I'm going to do that for all 12 pieces. And then I'm going to take the inside parts of the bottom parts that are left over, and I'm going to go down 5 inches and pull those together and make a knot again, just wrapping it around and feeding it through and pulling it tight. So now to hang this, I'm going to take my 2 sets of 50-inch strings, and I'm going to take my bracelet and pull the loop into the bracelet and over where the rest of the strings are, and then pull that all the way through that loop. This sounds so complicated, but I thought this would be easier than actually doing macrame, because that's what I'm trying to get this to look like. And it sounds complicated, might even look complicated, but I think it's easier than actually doing the macrame. And it has the same look, I think, once you see it at the end. So then I'm just going to take it 4 different spots. I'm going to take the strings and tie knots into the rings, and then you can either cut those off, or I just tucked them in towards the back, and then it's ready to hang. And then I'm going to take my pot and I'll feed it right into the top, put my plant in, and here's how it turned out. And I think it's so pretty. The fern I got from Walmart for $2.97 a while back, so it's seen better days, but it's still, I think, so light and airy, and I don't think you can really tell that this is just strings. It looks like something that was macramed. I don't know if that's a word. But I think it's very modern farmhouse / boho, and I love the fact that the planter fit perfectly into the wreath form. So I think it's super cute, and I hope you guys like it. For this next project, I can't even give you a supply list because I was planning to use 4 11 by 14 frames as well as an Easter sign. So for about $6, I was going to try and replicate this wall sconce that cost $179.99. So I gave it to Michael J to kind of work out the mechanics of cutting down my frames, But when I went outside, he had gone rogue and started using scrap wood, and apparently doesn't get the idea that this was supposed to be Dollar Tree. So I just went along with it, and so it's not a Dollar Tree project, but it still turns out so pretty, and he did such a good job. And so we're just gonna show you how this went down. So what he first did was took some molding and cut them down in 12-inch pieces, and then he mitered them with a 30-degree angle with the miter saw. And then he's going to put them all together on a piece of tape. He'll tape them together, which you'll see in just a second. He's explaining it away. I mean, he's got it down, and I should let you hear him, but you might not be able to understand him because he talks so fast. Anyway, so all he did was put a piece of painter's tape across all of the 6 boards, and then rolled it up and used wood glue in those mitered sections, and then let those hold together. And he did that twice, and then took another piece of scrap wood, a 1x6, and just drew the area that needed to be filled by it, and then made a little bottom section and put that all together. So you guys just have to watch this, and he does a really good job. So maybe you can do this. I did get to use the nail gun and some power tools, so that was fun. You got it? I did it.
It's your fingers.
So once we got everything put together, I went in with my Waverly wax and just stained the front and inside and back and all around. And then I took my Waverly chalk paint in ink and painted all of the hexagon trim. And here's how this turned out, and I am super in love with it. It wasn't a Dollar Tree DIY by any means, but it was scrap wood, so we didn't pay a penny for it. Michael J. did say that the trim that he used here is about $3 for 8 yards. No, 8 feet? However they do it at Home Depot. Anyway, I think it is so pretty, and it was made with love, and it was a project that we did together. So that makes it even more special. And I hope you like it. For our next project, we're going to be using 3 of these triangular shaped signs. I have some cardboard backing to some scrapbooking paper, and they didn't match, but in the end that turns out to be a good thing. Some Waverly white chalk paint and antique wax, and then we'll be using the Silhouette Cameo 3, so some white vinyl and the transfer paper and our weeding tools, and then some scissors and my Cricut spatula, and then my hot glue gun and some E6000. And so the first thing I did was take off the little medallion at the top with my Cricut spatula, and I use this for so many things. It's a tool that you cannot be without. And then I'm going to use it again to pull up the little tabbies on the back of the frame and pull that all out. And then I'm going to use the triangle part to trace around on my cardboard so I can get the same shape for. So now I'm going to take my sanding block and sand down the ickies off of the top part where the medallion was. And then I'm going to figure out where those ugly parts are so that they can be inside or behind the front one. And then I'll be able to figure out what is going to be the top and what's going to be the bottom. So now I'm just going to mark where my snow caps are going to be, and then that way I'll know where to stop with my Waverly wax. So I'm going to go around the bottom portions with that wax and get it to the shade that I want by putting it on and then wiping it off with a paper towel to get it to look like wood. And then for the front one, because it has the ickies over towards the side and the wax doesn't go over it very well and it'll show up. So I'm going to first paint that completely white with my Waverly white chalk paint, and then I'll go back in with the wax. So now I'm going to take my white chalk paint and make the snow caps by taking the side of my brush and just making little points and kind of rounding them off so it looks like the So now I'm going to get the measurements for my decals, and anytime you use the Waverly wax to paint a surface, it usually takes a lot longer to dry than just regular chalk paint. So while it's drying, I'm going to get my decals cut out, and this is, I think, appropriate because in Psalm 121 verses 1 and 2, it says, "I lift up my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth." So what I'm going to cut out is Psalm 121 verse 2, and it's just going to say, "My help comes from the Lord." And so I'm going to put "my help" on the first mountain, "comes from" on the second mountain, and then "the Lord" on the third mountain. And the font I'm using is from dafont.com, where you can download fonts for free for personal use. And this particular font is called Margareta. And so I love this font. It's a little crazy, but I think it goes with these mountains. And so my mom never likes this font because it's too skinny. So I'm sure there's some people that won't like it either. And so what I'm doing is just putting my transfer tape on and then getting it ready for when the frames are dry and ready to go. And so when anybody orders decals from my Etsy shop, which is White Sparrow Living, I do this for you. I actually lift it up and get it released and onto the transfer tape beforehand, and then I put the backing paper back on. So when you receive it, it might be a little wrinkled, the backing paper, and you might even have a little bit of Lola in there. That's our dog. Just because I pull it up and make sure that it's all ready to go so that when you receive it, it's easier to transfer. So then I'm going to put the backing back into the frames and then close the little tabbies. And I always want to make sure that the hangers are all also facing up, just in case we want to hang this. I'm doing this as a countertop piece, but I always like to keep my options open. So if you want to hang it, you could do that too. So now I'm going to assemble these, and I just overlapped each of the corners by 3 inches onto the other frames, and that's going to cover up the ickies that we don't want to see. And then I'm just going to use my E6000 and my hot glue, and the E6000 will keep it together for the long term and permanently, hopefully. And then I'm going to add the glue so that it stays right away. And you don't want to mix the two because I guess it doesn't stay as well if they're interacting chemically. So just do separate lines of each, or you can stagger them and do a little E6000 and a little bit of hot glue. So there were some CPs that came out, and so you can just wipe those away with a paper towel. And I don't know if you even notice this small detail, but anytime you see mountains or trees, anything that's closer to you is darker, and then the further away you get, they are lighter. So in this case, I utilized the different shades of my cardboard to do that effect that I got from Bob Ross. And then I'm just going to take my decals and place them towards the bottom of the mountains. And then I'm going to go back in with my white chalk paint and paint in the rest of my snow caps. And here they are all done, and I love these. I think they turned out so cute. And I know that this is popular children's decor, but I think the font kind of pulls it to an adult level, and I will have this in my living room. And anytime you look at the mountains now, you know where your help comes from. Project will be using this Happy Easter sign, and then 2 of these barbecue brushes. I've already got 2 prepared because of a different DIY that I did, but I just took pliers and pulled out the bristles, and I have a video of that, so I'll link that below. And then a wreath hanger, and then a 5/16 dowel from Walmart, and then a regular pencil. I end up using a black one, but a pencil. And then some hook and loop tape from Dollar Tree, and then some 6-inch masking paper, and I got this at Home Depot, some jute twine, and some Martha Stewart chalkboard paint and Waverly wax, and then some Waverly chalk paint in ink, and then my hot glue gun, E6000, and my scissors. And so the first thing we're going to do is get our board ready by pulling out the jute twine and taking off the little bunny's bow. And we're going to be using the back side of this board again. And so I'm going to paint this with the chalkboard paint. So I first cut down my dowel because I'm going to paint it as well. And so I'm using some shears. You could use a utility knife and just score it and cut it off that way. Then I'm going to use my sanding block to make the edge smooth and get that all nice and ready to paint. And then I used my Michael J to cut my wreath holder so that I could get a 9¼ inch piece of that metal, just the flat part. So then I'm going to go in with my chalkboard paint, and this is different than chalk paint. This is the actual chalkboard paint that you can use chalk on and write. So you're going to give it 2 pretty thin coats of the chalkboard paint and let them dry, let the coat dry before you apply the next coat. And then I'm going to take my Waverly wax in antique and paint my 2 barbecue sticks, as well as some Jenga pieces, 4 Jenga pieces, which I forgot to put in the supply list, and my dowel. So all of those will be in the Waverly wax. And then I'm going to use my black paint and just regular chalk paint. I'm going to paint my metal piece black. So now I'm going to take my metal piece and I'm going to attach it to the very bottom of my board. And I'm using my E6000 and my hot glue, and I'm only going to go about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches on each side so that my paper can slide through it when I pull it through. So I just attach those, and then I'm going to take my barbecue sticks, and I don't know why I'm calling them barbecue sticks, but they're barbecue brush sticks. No, barbecue brush handles, and then I'm going to attach those. These have a curve, so you want to make sure that the hole is at the top, and so it's going to curve up so that there's room for our roll of paper. So I also want it to kind of overlap maybe 1/4 inch, just so you can't quite see the sides or the metal bar parts. So I'm going to take my E6000 and start where the curve starts so that it's going to be flat on the bottom and it'll curve up towards the top. So now that the two side pieces are attached, there's a little space in between at the top. And so I'm going to stack two Jenga pieces together using my E6000, and then I'm going to tuck that right in underneath so that it's in the center. So only half of the Jenga piece will be attached to the board, and I'm not attaching it to the barbecue handles. It's just sitting in there so that it looks like it's part of the mechanism, and yeah, so that it's cute. And then just to give it some more rustic flair, I'm going to go in with some sandpaper and sand down the edges of my barbecue handles. And then I'm going to take my jute twine and refeed it back in through those holes. And it has those hard pieces that feed through there and hold it once you push it all the way through. So that's our hanger. And then I'm going to go in with my dowel and stick it through the first side and then through my paper and then out the other side. And now we have a little holder. But we need a pencil, so I'm going to take my jute twine and tie it to my pencil because that's the only way to keep it together. And I just cut down a piece and attached it to the side of the Jenga pieces and tied it there. And then I'm going to take some hook and loop tape so that it's not just hanging, and I'm going to attach that to the side of my board. And so here's how it turned out. I have it in the kitchen near my refrigerator and the pantry so that it's easy access to make our grocery list. And oh my goodness, I just love this. I think it is so rustic and so farmhouse, and everybody's been writing on it. I don't know what it is, but I guess if there's a pencil nearby, people want to write on it. I've had my mom write on it, my daughter write on it, our grandkids. It's just super cute and eye-catching, I think, and very functional. But also, if you run out of the paper and you haven't gotten a replacement, you can also use the chalkboard. And so I put a little piece of chalk up on the top, on top of one of the Jenga pieces. And so it has easy access and you won't ever be without a writing instrument. So I just love this, and I love you guys, and I hope you like it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, comment, let me know what you think, and if you're not already, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below as well as the bell right next to it so that you can be notified every time I upload a brand new video. I hope everyone has a blessed day, and remember to always be the light. Bye!